Okay, good morning. I want to give an Oura Ring review today. We are giving away, they're like, I have this crazy curl. Okay, they're giving away an Oura Ring for just as a celebration for our brand relaunch this week. So there's still time. We're going to be announcing the winner tomorrow at 3. But I also just wanted to talk about the Oura Ring, why I love it, why I recommend it, but also give you guys some tips and tricks on how to interpret it and interpret all the scores, and then potentially improve those scores so you can actually use it and use it well. So that's what I'm going to do here this morning. So first of all, the number one reason why I really like the Oura Ring, because it's not like the previous fitness health trackers that I've seen that really focus heavily on like calories burned and steps and honestly like activity level, but to an extreme where it's like all about the closed rings or whatever Apple does, but like the specific calorie goal that you want to meet. And there's something about that always really aggravated me. So the thing I love about the Oura Ring is, while it does have a component, obviously, of activity and movement, because that's important, and you could go in there and look at calories and look at steps, even though I think there's like a 20% discrepancy on either side. But the cool thing I love about it is what Oura Ring does instead is it forces you to focus on, honestly, what truly matters, which is how you're feeling day to day. So it really is assessing your needs for any given day. And then it does give you recommendations, or if you know how to interpret the information, on how to go about your day to then support your body, which I really appreciate. I'm going to turn off the noise for my emails. Okay. So that's really like the thing that stands out the most to me for this. So it's really, again, it's really main goal is focusing on your needs day to day, which is definitely different than other fitness tracker. So just to break down the different scores a little bit, I think it's helpful to understand actually what it's telling you if you do get one, or if you have one and you're just not 100% sure. But there's some top features to really pay attention to, and the number one that I like is the readiness score. So this is kind of like your body's dashboard, if you will, and it combines data from sleep, your activity, your heart rate, and your HRV, which is your HRV score, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail, but that is your heart rate variability. And like I said, we can talk about that in a second. But it kind of combines all of these data points and then gives you an overall picture of how ready your body is to take on a bunch of activity that day. So if your score is high, then your body's recovered, it's doing well, you're okay to maybe push yourself through like a harder workout. Or if you have a lot planned that day, like you're okay, you're doing well, your body's in a good place and it's nicely recovered and can take on some additional demands, I would say, that day. But when we get these lower readiness scores, that's really a sign that we want to prioritize rest. We didn't recover well. So something either happened with our sleep, or our HRV score is wonky, or our heart rate is higher than normal. And I'll talk about this a little bit later too, but you're gonna get lower readiness scores. So your heart rate's gonna be a little bit elevated, your sleep may be impacted, your temperature, etc., during your luteal phase, so that period of time right before your period, which is really interesting because your Oura Ring will tell you. Sometimes it does, and after it gets to know you and know your cycle, which takes a few months, it will attribute those things to your luteal phase, or that period right before your period. But it will tell you like, hey, prioritize rest. You don't have a lot of resilience to stress. You probably shouldn't push yourself, which is super accurate to that time of the month for us females. So I would, like, when we get a lower readiness score, I think it's really important that we don't let that frustrate us. and it's not about like chasing the high score. But again, our bodies, we go through times of stress. We go through, like, stress happens on a day-to-day basis, right? So if you get a lower score, all it's telling you is like, great, today is more of a rest day. It's a good day to prioritize those things, not to get frustrated or beat up on yourself that you didn't have this like great readiness score, because it's just life. No one is going to have, and no one should have this like perfect readiness score all day, every day. But you just take it as a sign that we want to prioritize rest, recovery, and then that way the next day, if you do those things, right, if you do those things the day that it's telling you to, the next day that readiness score should be higher, so you could probably take on more. And that, again, depends on the time of the month, but it's a really cool score to really get you in tune with listening to your body's needs. This is particularly important for us women that are always on the go. Go, 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 go. And we never take time to slow down, or it's really hard for us to slow down, because Oura Ring will teach you and kind of coach you through like, hey, you do need this time to rest and prioritize, and here's why, and here's the data that backs that up, which can be really encouraging, because a lot of us feel a lot of guilt around that when we slow down. So it's actually like nice to see the data points of what my body's telling me that I need, because it gives me that excuse to actually take the time to slow down. But then on the other hand, like, just learning too. Sometimes we just don't know, because we've been in this pattern of go, go, go for so long that we don't know. So that's one of the top scores to pay attention to know, to learn. Okay, so then moving on to HRV, which I think is a little bit more complicated for people, but this is the second kind of tool or score that you can look at for insights. But this is your heart rate variability. And I think it's probably one of the most useful metrics, because it's going to measures the variation, heart rate variability, but it measures the variation between your heartbeats. So it reflects how well your nervous system is actually doing, which is pretty darn cool that we have that kind of insight on a day-to-day basis. So when we have a higher heart rate variability, we are adapting well to stress. Our nervous system is better, it's recovered. We're not stuck in maybe that fight or flight place. Adaptation to stress is really great. So we can take that as a good sign that our nervous system is doing well. When we have a low HRV, this can be a signal that your body's under stress currently, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, related to poor sleep, because that's one of the ways our nervous system really responds, and can make us less resilient to stress. So any of those things can cause this low HRV, which then indicates that, yeah, your body currently is under stress. Your nervous system is not super happy at the moment. So in order to improve that score, that's where we really want to focus on parasympathetic boosting activities. So again, low HRV, we have a nervous system that's activated. You're in a stress, fight or flight response. You're currently under stress. And so we want to, in order to counter that, do some parasympathetic. So you have your sympathetic, fight or flight, and then your parasympathetic. So we want to do some parasympathetic boosting activities when you see that score low. So this could be taking 2 to 3 minutes to do some deep breathing exercises. This could be honestly like incorporating some restorative movement that day. This could be doing something you like. It could be dancing around your kitchen to music when you're cooking instead of just nothingness. Any of these things that can take us out of stress mode and put us into more of a parasympathetic state. I will say breathing is the fastest way you're going to do this. Deep breaths, even if it's just 2 to 3 minutes. But that's going to help raise that HRV score and get your body out of whatever stress. So again, whether that's emotional, physical, mental, or poor sleep. The really cool thing about Oura Ring, it gives us this stress chart throughout the day. So, and if you've seen this, if you have one, it's this stress chart, and it has 3 sections. It has or 4 sections. It has stressed at the top, engaged, relax, and then restored at the very bottom. And it will show you throughout the day like how much time you actually spend in stress mode, engaged mode, relaxed mode, restored mode. And it kind of goes like this throughout the day. This is really cool. It's one of my favorite things about the Oura Ring. But I think what happens is, and what I've heard from my clients too, is that they get really shocked when the Oura Ring is telling them they're in a stress mode. And the Oura Ring, again, is giving you a stress signaling, or will put you in that stress mode based on your HRV, so that heart rate variability, based on your temperature, and then your current heart rate as well. Now, these things can go up. Your temperature and your heart rate go up when you're exercising. Your HRV can go down when you're exercising. That's very normal. So they could put you in a stress zone for that. But a lot of women are like, I didn't even feel stressed during this time of the day, and my ring is telling me I'm stressed. Or they're looking at that and they're like, gosh, I spent a really long time in stress today, but I didn't feel stressed. Or the end of the night was really stressful, but I didn't feel stress. And I think that's really interesting because, again, what Oura Ring is doing is trying to give you insights to what your body's doing when maybe you're not very connected to or in tune with those things. Now, I always tell my clients that even if your ring is saying you're stressed, that's actually less important of information as how much time you're spending in the relaxed and restored part of the graph. Because throughout the day, your whole day, you're gonna experience these little spikes in stress. That's normal. That's a good nervous system response. That's healthy. We want our body to respond to acute stressors, whether it's like a traffic jam or your kid's having a meltdown, or you just had an emotional conversation, whatever that is. Our body should respond. We should get a spike in stress. That's less important than, is your body recovering? So after you have that stress response or that stress event, do you come back down? So when you're looking at that graph, if it spikes, are you coming back down into a relaxed or restored space? And that's indicating a flexible nervous system, which is what we want. We want a nervous system that can respond to stress well and then recovers well. We can go into sympathetic, but we can also really quickly enter parasympathetic and recover. And so what we want to see is anytime there's a spike, and this is probably more important of information, but when there's a spike on your graph, pay less attention to how much time you're spending in that stress zone and look for the drop after. If you're not getting a good drop back into a relax or restore after a stress, maybe you're staying in stress or going into engaged, that's what you want to work on. Then what you need to do in order to improve your nervous system, and this will also improve in turn your HRV score, is when you see on your chart a stress response that you're going into a parasympathetic boosting activity afterwards. So let's say you worked out and you had stress up here, then we want to incorporate a cool down. Deep breathing, nice long stretching, 10-15 minutes. We're doing a cool down. We're getting our body back into that parasympathetic state so that your ring will track that dip. If you had like an emotional conversation, what are you doing immediately after? That will be parasympathetic. Maybe again, it's like turning on some happy, upbeat music. Maybe it's going for a little walk outside. Maybe it's just sitting and breathing. Like, what are we doing to come back out of that stress zone? And that's going to improve your HRV. That's going to improve your nervous system. It's going to create nervous system flexibility. So again, when you're looking at that stress chart, pay less attention and get less irritated or frustrated by your body going into stress mode, because that's fine and normal. And maybe we don't recognize when that happens, but it's like, it's good. Your nervous system's working. And pay more attention to, but are you recovering? Are you coming back down? Are you getting a good drop in that graph? So when you're looking at and interpreting that piece of the information, that's what I would focus on. And that's going to help improve everything so much more when you have this really nice nervous system flexibility. And especially for those women that really struggle with like on the go, go, and you see a lot of stress dominance in that graph, incorporating those nervous system recovery activities, breath work, walking, whatever it is that you like, that's going to help. And help you create that balance between stress and recovery. That's what we want. We're not looking for lives that are void of stress. That's impossible, especially if you're working and you have kids or whatever, just the demands of life. So it's not what we're looking for. We just want that recovery. Okay, switching gears. So the last part, or the last section, scores that I really enjoy about the Oura Ring are the temperatures. So especially for women, this is how we can gain a lot of cycle insights. So it's kind of this like must-have feature, and I love that the Oura Ring does that. And it's one of the really awesome things about Oura Ring is that it gives you an opportunity to track and learn your cycle. So again, just teaching you more about your body. So it will monitor temperature trends, and then so if I had to, one little thing about Oura Ring is I wish it gave you your actual temperature. Instead, what it does is it does monitor trends. So it tells you the ups and downs, but it doesn't give you that actual number. But it does integrate with apps like Natural Cycles, where it will automatically pull your temperature, pop it in Natural Cycles, and you're able to see that actual number, which is nice. So there is that integration feature if you want to see that number, which I know for a lot of my clients, I can talk about why that's important, that specific number when you're working on things like metabolic health or thyroid health. So that's a fun piece of information to have that Oura Ring doesn't have but can integrate. But for the most part, the cycle, the temperature chart, and the graph that it does give you is really, really cool. So we can use it because what happens is in your luteal phase. So just for those of you that aren't 100% sure about the phases of your menstrual cycle, I'm going to go through this real quickly. But you have 4. So the very first phase of your menstrual cycle, so I'm going to use 30 days because that's just easy. It's okay if your menstrual cycle is not 30 days, but just we'll be there. So very first phase is our menstrual phase. So that's your period. Then we go into our follicular phase. So the phase right after your period. We have your ovulatory phase, ovulation, and then we have your luteal phase. So there's 4 phases. So that's going to cover all of the things. So how you use temperature to help track the phases of your cycle. And then also that will help you to adjust like activity level, rest and recovery. You'll be able to tell when your period's coming. You can start to support different phases of your cycle where you might be struggling due to reading this temperature graph. So what it's going to do with your temps in your menstrual and your follicular phase, so the first 2 phases of your cycle, you're going to have lower temperatures. So on your graph, you're going to see like that baseline, and your temps may all be kind of right along that baseline. Maybe there's a little peaks here and there. Maybe they drop below a little bit. That's totally normal. So you're seeing lower temperatures, menstrual, follicular. Then what happens is Oura Ring can help you confirm ovulation. Now, it's not going to predict ovulation, but it will help you confirm that ovulation happened. So when you start to see every morning in that graph this jump in temperature, so you'll see low, 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 and then all of a sudden you'll get this jump in temperature, that is confirming that ovulation happened. So that raise in temperature is actually your progesterone levels. So what it also does is tells us, did that jump in temperature can tell us, did we have a good ovulation, a nice strong ovulation, and do we have enough progesterone, and did that estrogen, because we want estrogen to also drop off in order to create this nice little jump in temperature. So that's what we're looking for. And then what should happen in your luteal phase, so the rest of the time before you get your period, you should see higher temperatures until a day or 2 before your period. Then you'll start to see them lower off, and that's when you'll know your period is here or a day or 2 away. So when you're looking at that, we can track for ovulation, we can track for progesterone imbalances, because if you get let's say you ovulate and you get a jump in a spike in temperatures, but then your temperatures fall again right away and they don't hold for that good 7 to 10 days after in your luteal phase. That's a sign of potential estrogen dominance, because when estrogen is supposed to fall off in your luteal phase, if it doesn't, progesterone doesn't hold as well. So we don't get that spike in temperature. Okay. So that can be an indication. If you don't get a spike in temperature, that's a really interesting indication about telling us about ovulation. So there's different insights into your cycle that we can get, and then we can learn how to support. So if it's an estrogen issue, if it's a progesterone issue, if it's an ovulation issue, we start to learn how we can support those different parts of our cycle, just gaining this type of information. Now, when your temperature rises in the second half of your cycle in that luteal phase, we get a higher heart rate, we get lower HRV, so we get a lower heart rate variability, we get naturally a higher temperature. So in theory, your Oura Ring is going to think that you're a little bit more stressed out than usual. Your resiliency to stress has lowered. This is very normal in our luteal phase. Our metabolism is higher, we are working harder, we are using more of our energy resources in that 7 to 10 days. So your body is a little less resilient to stress. This is why in your luteal phase, and your Oura Ring will kind of tell you this, you should pull back on activity a little bit. You should pull back on the things that are stressing you out. You should say no a little bit more. We should practice more rest and recovery, but we can also focus a little more intentionally on food and things of that nature that cause stress. So how's your blood sugar? Nutrient density is really important in this phase of your cycle because we are using up so much energy and resources. And when we're low on those things, it does create a stress response. So there are different things that you can do to support yourself. And in turn, if you're somebody that's really struggles with painful periods or PMS, focusing on luteal phase support in that way can be really helpful. And the Oura Ring will tell you, you're in your luteal phase, now's a really good time to get serious about focusing on your rest, recovery, nutrition, blood sugar. Even if it's just for those 7 to 10 days, that's the most important time to do it. So this data isn't just about fertility, which it can give us. Again, it can confirm ovulation, which is nice. It's so much more than that. Cycle tracking and being able to gain those insights of when your body's doing what is so important for just overall health in general for us. So again, HRV, we want higher HRV scores when it's low, when readiness and HRV scores are low. We want to focus more on rest, recovery, light movement, restorative movement, deep breathing, extra sleep, downtime. That's going to improve that score. And then the other one too, I guess I forgot to talk really briefly. I do want to talk about sleep data, because when your HRV or your readiness scores are low, obviously sleep is playing a really big role. That's one of the data points it uses. So I do think the sleep insights are really important, because high sleep scores are going to translate to higher HRV and readiness scores and a better nervous system, more resiliency to stress, all the things. So with poor sleep, if you have a lower sleep score, we do want to review your REM scores, your deep sleep score. Your deep sleep is where you're getting the most restorative sleep. So we want a good 1.5 to 2 hours of deep sleep. So that's something to really pay attention to. If you're not getting enough deep sleep, if you're not getting into that deep sleep period of time, your sleep score is going to be lower. Best way to improve this is the time you actually go to sleep. There are a lot of other tips and tricks, but if you're going to bed at midnight or 11 p.m. or later, even if you're getting 8 hours of sleep and you're like, why is my sleep score so low? It says I was in bed for 8-9 hours. Because that period of time where you can get into the deepest, most restorative sleep is between 10 and 2 a.m. So if you're not going to bed until 11 or 12, you're only having an opportunity of 2 hours. And by the time you cycle through falling asleep, REM sleep, and get into deep sleep, you may only have 30 minutes there. So if you're getting a low sleep score, look at your deep sleep. If that is not at a good I mean, I would even push it to 2 hours, but like hour and a half minimum to 2 hours. We want to look at what time you're actually falling asleep and going to bed. Move that way up, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Watch that improve greatly. But then you're going to improve your nervous system, your sleep scores, your readiness scores, your HRV, all the things. If you're doing that already, then, you know, there are different things we want to incorporate. Limiting caffeine, making sure you have a good bedtime routine, calming routine. Look at your light exposure before bed. Bedroom needs to be cool, calm, dark. All of those things too you can incorporate into good sleep hygiene to get you better scores. But that is super important when we're looking at improving those things. So, in closing thoughts, you can start to see why I love the Oura Ring, and it really isn't just a tracker. So it is, I think, the coolest thing. It's a really good tool about understanding your body better, but in the way that really matters when we're talking about overall health, stress, nervous system. Those key insights are so important. Our cycle, our hormones, our cycle, our reproductive hormones, these things are so important. So it's not just like a fitness tracker, which is why I love it so much, because it's really can move you towards better habits. So I hope that was helpful when you're interpreting your own data. If you have any questions, obviously you can always ask them. And again, enter the giveaway if you're like, great, I want one of these now. Awesome. We have one more day. So again, till 3 p.m. tomorrow, we're going to be doing the giveaway. And what you want to do is there's a post on our grid giveaway. There's an Oura Ring in the middle. Go ahead and follow, like, tag as many friends as you want. Those are different entries. Each tag is a different entry, and you can even post that to your story, and that will get you an extra entry, and then we'll announce the winner and reach out to you personally. So I hope this is helpful, and just let me know if you have any questions.